Most of you Christians out here are fighting the wrong enemy. You don't even realize it. So when John the Baptist was born, his father Zechariah renders a prophecy, which is actually a callback to a prophecy that was given to the forefathers of Israel. This happened so that he might show the mercy promised to our fathers, that he would remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore before Abraham, to grant us that we, freed from our enemies, would serve him without fear. Now that line right there is very important. Freed from our enemies. So everything in this prophecy pertains to Jesus and how Jesus is going to free us from our enemies. But the question is, what enemies were they speaking about? Therefore, since the children share a common physical nature as human beings, he, speaking of Jesus, became like them and shared that same human nature, so that by his death he might render ineffective the one who had power over death, that is the adversary, and thus set free those who had been in bondage all their lives because of their fear of death. You see, the problem is a lot of you are out here fighting the world, the government, people that think differently than you, the immoral, all of these things, not understanding that the actual enemy is the adversary. Your enemy isn't flesh and blood or bad ideas. It is the spiritual powers and principalities and rulers of the air that Paul talks about in Ephesians, where he says that we need to take up the war equipment of God, spiritual war equipment, not physical. Why? Because our enemy is not flesh and blood. It is spiritual. And for those of you that take pleasure in running around tearing down false prophets and exposing all of the corruption that you see in the church or in other believers, the thing you have to remember is that behind every corrupted human being is either a doctrine of demons or a spiritual power. The people that so many Christians are so vociferously and violently raging against are the very people that Jesus is actually trying to save. And so while we should not shy away from speaking the truth, there is a way to speak the truth in love. But that way begins by understanding what it was that we have been freed from. Jesus freed us from our fear of death. And that means every single outworking of death as well, which includes suffering, which includes rejection, which includes living in a world that is run by corrupt governments, by corrupt people, by things that cause our daily lives to be stressful and frustrating and challenging because our children are being exposed to ideologies and things that we don't want them to be exposed to. It means living at peace in these types of environments. It means overcoming evil with good, not moving against the enemy with the same methods that they're moving against us with. It means if you're called to this political sphere, not calling people that disagree with you libtards or MAGA morons. It means if you're called to the church, not calling every single person you disagree with a false prophet or a wolf. It means bringing peace when everything in you desires war. It means resisting without rebelling. Think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who resisted the king's order to bow to the idol, but did not refuse him when the consequences for violating his order came due. The truth is, I would say our fight is far less with our brothers and sisters who we disagree with, is far less with the immoral, the world, and the governments. Most days, our hardest fight is going to be with ourselves. To remember that Jesus freed us from our fear of not only death, but every outworking of death. All of the suffering and things that we don't want to experience in this life, we have been freed from the fear of those things. And so we no longer need to react to the situations that seem to be rising up against us. But instead, from a place of eternal peace and security, we can respond to these situations in a way that brings forth both the kingdom of God and his will in the earth. If you want to wage war on evil, start with the greatest enemy to God's purposes being carried out in the earth, and look in the mirror. Shh.